Hello, everybody. You ready for this? I am. How is everyone doing on a fine MFM night? Hey. All right. I see there's a few people in the stream already. So I don't really have a timeline for this. So we'll just run through the MFM. I don't have fancy smancy OBS like Alex does. So I can't pull up everything in on the screen for you. So unfortunately, you're just gonna have to look at my old looking face. So, um, all right. There's lots of questions about Bastion Task Force. We will get to it. I promise you. I know that's what all y'all are here for. Well, some of y'all, but we will talk about it. Yeah. So I will try and answer questions as best as I can as I'm following, but because I'm going to be reading off of my screen, I may not be on the stream, so I may not catch it. I know Alex said he might tune in because he's traveling for work, so it's just me today. Uh, Usually it's Alex that does these when there's other things going on, but he might be able to answer questions if I miss them, so apologies if I do that. But I'm going to do the best I can. So, we are going to start. So if you do not know, the uh, MFM points are dropped. You probably fell asleep and were in a coma today if you didn't notice it, but they are on the website. You can click into the article. It does have a weird uh, way of accessing it. It's now based on the website. It's not a PDF anymore. So hopefully they give us like a easy mode way of accessing the the points. That's just a little weird. You can also update the app, but the app has a lot of issues right now. One example is the Vanguard veterans. I think I know that the Judiciar has access to the support keyword instead of just the leader. It actually, if I think that on the app it shows the leader and the support, it's supposed to be just the leader. So there's still some issues. There's some point issues in the app. So don't utilize the document. So first things first with this, if you did not notice, Black Templars are now separated from the Space Marines and their points. So this is going to be a lot longer than it normally is as far as points go. So I'll kind of go quickly through these and I'll kind of look at the stream just to see if there's any questions, comments. So I'll kind of comment on those things, pick on the highlights. Fortunately, they still do have the old MFM, so you can kind of compare if you would like to do that. You can find that on the Warhammer community website still. But yeah, just kind of reading up real quick before I start. Yeah, there's definitely going to be a roller coaster of emotions right at the new edition. I think this first month is going to be very crazy. We do have a day one uh, document that's going to be dropping that's rumored to be pretty significant. It's referenced by Scary. If you know Scary, typically plays Drukari, but does play Black Templars as well. In one of his battle report videos, he was talking about a new mechanic to ground that increases the hidden range. That was a playtesting thing that I don't think was supposed to be announced yet. And he let it slip. So that's going to be, if you go to ground, you're going to have a 12-inch hidden. We referenced it in our stream, the last vaguely. but Skari kind of let it out. So there it's that. So yeah, there's lots of things going on. Plus, there is a book coming. So get your games in, play what you would like to do over the next month because when new books come out, things change, right? Okay. All right. Okay. Ooh, someone get an Armageddon box early. I won't lie, I did get all of my land speeders that I bought today, so that was kind of cool. I started building them, waiting for the stream. So, all right, let's go do this. All right, Castellan, 70 points, no change. Grimaldus, 110 points, no change. Crusade Ancient, that is a change of 10 points. It's going down to 45 from 55. So I think that actually is going to be something that might be viable at 45 points. So one of those synergies that we have out there is going to be the potential for adding them to the Crusader squad. As we all know, with the new rules, fights first does not give us anything extra as a defensive buff. So what you can do now is you can add the Crusade Ancient to the Crusader squad. If you get shot and you blood surge into combat and they do damage to you, you have at least a shot to fight on death. So it gives some at least some synergy with that and some more efficiency instead of just straight up dying, which we don't like. Crusader squads are kind of fragile, but this gives you a very cheap character that you can add on there. And if you're on the offensive, well, you're not going to buff them directly. You're going to give yourself some extra mastercrafted power weapon. So get some extra damage for 45 points. I think that's kind of a steal. So 55 points, too much. 45, maybe something we might be looking at doing. So Crusader Squad, there was rumors that these were going to be going up in price in cost, but they stay at 150 and then they actually go down from 300 to 290. Now, I suspect this has something to do with engagement range and fast rolling. This is going to be a big nerf to the 20-man squads. So, well, we'll talk about this more in a little bit on Bastion, but 20-man squads are much tougher and are not nearly as good when you're trying to fit it in within a 9-inch coherency. Makes them a lot less user friendly. You can't stretch them out. They don't screen as well. Plus, because you have multiple armor save values, you are fast rolling on some of your better units. So they can snipe those things out with precision. I just their their value is down in large squads to me. So that's probably why they gave it the discount, but still solid. Let me see here. Ooh. Um, let's see here. Emperor's Champion, 100 points. Execrator, 60 points. Oh, yeah, he was still 60 points. We have the Gladiator Lancer, no change there. The Reaper Valiant, no changes there. High Marshal Helbrick stays at 120. The Impulsor stays at 85. The Land Raider Crusader, I actually have to check that one. That's still at 220. But it does. So, and actually, the Gladiators have attacks as well, so I didn't talk about that. So this is new. If you take an additional model, depending on what that model is or unit, you actually have to pay a tax on it. So in this particular case, is the first and second one are going to be 220 for the Land Raider Crusader, and then 240 for that last one. So it discourages spamming them in the multiples of 3. I think most of them are on that third unit, but not all of them. So The next one is going to be kind of the annoying one is the Marshall, 80 points, which is what it was normally. But if you take a second one or more, that's 90. So as I mentioned, two you get for the same price, but this one is like the second and third one cost 90 points instead, which is really lame because we like running two Marshalls with Castellans. So that's really kind of annoying. So um yeah, you, that's a good point. You should get a discount for taking more than one Land Raider Crusader. Yeah, I agree. They need a little bit of a glow up. Repulsor. Oh, let's see. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Ooh, this one actually went down 170. So it's down 10 points for the first and second one. Pay 190 if it's the third one. And then we get to our poor Repulsor Executioner. First and second one cost 245, which is up 10 points from the 235. If you take a third one, not many of us were, but there's some crazies out there. Crazy cool guys taking 265 for that last one. I suspect with the more dense terrains, we're gonna be struggling to hide both of those rep X's. So you're either gonna probably put one of them in reserve, or you'll probably do a redeploy for something like if you're in Ceramite Sentinels, you'll take that redeploy, use Repulsor Executioner to either put it into strategic reserves or find a different piece of terrain to hide it, because there's differing terrain. It's hard to hide it, and we have a lot of smaller terrain pieces that you can't really stick that thing behind. So I think one is going to be the standard, maybe two. It really kind of depends on what you're. I think this is going to be one of those places where you might transition into the Lancer again to try and save some points, but you can still utilize some anti vehicle or monster options. But obviously, you're not going to get all those extra guns on there. So, really kind of have to look at that really closely because depending on your disposition and your map, you could be in a hurt bag if you're not being careful with that, and you'll lose that executioner right away. Sternguard veteran squads. Oh, we haven't even looked at this in a long time because they're really bad. Uh, those guys. Oh, they're the same price for 5, but they went down for 10. We're still not taking them. Moving on. Sword Brethren squad. So 4 models, same. 5 models, the same. Ooh, we can take 9 models now. That one is 235, and then the 10 models, which is 260. Oh, we could take 9 models before. What am I talking about? But most of the time we weren't taking more than 5 anyway. So, but this is also a taxed unit, so yeah, don't take more than 2 units. And then we have Terminators, which is 160. So that is our thing. So Black Templars overall, our units, with the exception of like the Crusade Ancient, went up in cost overall, slightly. So in the case of the Repulsor Executioner, we went up 10 points. We went down in the Repulsor, which still has some decent rules. For that as a cheeky rule for that, so there you can utilize that. The Marshall, the second model is annoying, so you're really probably going to be taking in most competitive like MSU Black Templar lists probably about a 30% hike in points. But with that being said, we did gain some buffs in the Crusade Ancient. The Crusader squad at the 20 man is down in 10 points. So, I mean, overall, I'll take it. I mean, not bad. But we're going to make it up in other places. So, give it a little look here. Mhm. Let's see. Yeah, there was also rumors, and I couldn't confirm it through our sources, but there was rumors that they were going to be doing equipment costs again. And I was like, I haven't heard that, but there were some people that were like, it's happening. And it's clear that that didn't happen. I'm glad it didn't. I prefer this route. There was a big uproar when 10th edition came out, about the points and how this kind of made balance a little bit different, but I prefer this list building style. It makes it more strategic in my mind. So, um, the 9 models option is because the Sword Brethren box, you can make one of them a Castellan model if you so choose. It has the option in there. So they say, well, if you made a Castellan with that unit, you only have 9 models left. So they give you the options. So that is true, Beneshi. Yeah, they do have that. So good call out there. All right, we'll get that in that a little bit. Aggressor squads, they went down. Let me scroll. Sorry, I was reading the chat. I'm gonna try and get through these pretty quickly so that we're not going to waste some time just reading off these little guys. So, uh, okay. So aggressor squads went down 5 points to 90 points for the 3, and then 80 for the 6 man, which I believe is down as well. Yeah, 190. So that was good, but they do have attacks. I don't think you're taking more than one in a set anymore, so that's fine. An ancient, I mean, 40 points. At this point, you almost really, I, I don't know. You almost want to take this in BTF at this point. 40 points, that's stupid. Stupid cheap. All right. So the reason why I think that is unless you have precision, it is incredibly difficult to kill a character from a unit. You have to have a lot of firepower. And just because fast rolling and how it works. So if you have something like Purge the Foe, you're going to deny a lot of points to uh, your opponent if they can't kill the character that's attached to your unit. And for 40 points, an ancient almost is worth it. I don't know. It doesn't really give you anything on the board. Gives you some OC, I guess, but I don't know. 40 points for a character might be worthwhile. It just okay. Ancient and Terminator armor. That one I believe went down 10. Apothecary 40 points. 40 points. Again, might be worthwhile. Take one of them. So I really kind of like the Apothecary for some tricksy things with like Hell Blasters. There's different options on these. Um, I believe they can be joined to our units now as well. Yes, Sword Brethren, they can be added to in the Crusader squad. So apothecaries being added to these are pretty awesome. I do like them also for Blade Guard veteran squads. So this is a unit that I would be taking a look at for some of these combos for bringing them up, especially if you are in a take and hold uh, disposition, because we don't have a lot of really durable stuff. This will give you some cheeky ways to revive models as they die. And for 40 points, if you're not having a character attached, why not? We have the biologists. I think this one is the same. 70. Yeah, 70. Assault Intercessor Squad's the same. We have Assault Intercessors with jump packs. So it's 85, 160, which I believe is the same. And then it's going to be the third unit is taxed. Not surprised. Um, Astrius, I don't use those, but it's 525. Ballistus Dreadnought is going to be 150, which went down 10 points. So, just watching here. Let's see. Yes, John, right. That would also be the same. It's really annoying to have to kill characters off the units. So we talked about it in our last stream. The I believe um, there is some positives out there. So we do have some access to precision in melee, which before was atrocious. But Games Workshop redeemed themselves and made that stratagem really good now, being able to kill the characters out fast. But there's not a ton of access around. But I will be willing to bet that precision is going to make a big comeback. So having access to it is definitely a boon. Because without it, then you're just going to be able to keep those characters alive for a lot longer, and it will take instead of one turn and potentially one unit to kill a unit that in 10th edition you could easily kill it. Now you can fast roll and allocate those groups in such a way that that character is going to live, and you have to devote more resources to it, which is really kind of annoying. Blade Guard Ancient, also worthless. I think this one was 40 before. Don't quote me, 45. So it is discounted again. So you're starting to see a little bit of a trend here on these characters. So one I like and find a little bit cool here is our Blade Guard veterans. So the 3-man squad is still the same price at 180, but it goes to 160 for the 6-man unit, which is down 10 points. Now, if you take 3 units, then you go up to 190 and 170. 170 is the current price, so you're not going to get the discount unless you take the 6 models. But Blade Guard veterans are one of our units that are kind of considered durable. So take and hold is something that you might be um, really liking with that. Um, Priority assets also is going to be a disposition that we like. Uh, Ellis Smith, is the ancient detachment good now that the points are dropped? I think it is definitely very worth considering. Now, there is some stratagems in it that are a little bit redundant with the new 11th edition rules. But with that being said, you do have options in that detachment. It gives you some durability, and I believe it's priority assets, which is one of the ones that is pretty easy for Space Marines to accomplish. And they have some really good matchups. So, in my opinion, take and hold and priority assets are the two dispositions that are best suited for as Black Templars player. Purge the Foe is okay, but everyone is going to be playing Purge the Foe, so it's going to be a little bit of a slaughter fest, and I think we can skew in other directions. There's other armies that kill things better than we do, so trying to outkill something might not be the best option. Fast rolling make Crusaders less durable? Yes, they do. Simply because you have the neophytes of the 4 plus. So you have to allocate those fast rolls in such a way that you're utilizing your initiates sooner rather than later in some cases. But it just really depends on what characters that are be attached to it. But overall, fast rolling does reduce the durability slightly of the Crusaders. All right, so moving on. So we have the Brutalis Dreadnought. That one is going to be 150, which is down 10. Captain is 80, which I believe is the same. Captus and Gravis Armor is 80, which I believe is the same. Captain in Phobos. That one I have to look at. I haven't used them in a while. 70, same. Captain Terminator armor 85, which I believe is a 10-point discount. Let's look. Yep. So that's something that's going to be nice. Terminators do have differing points. We'll get to in a few minutes. So that's pretty cool. Captain with a jump pack. 75 is the same. Centurion assault squads. They are short on life, I would imagine. So, but they are still here in this. But they do have a discount at 150 and 300. So they were 25 points more expensive. I'm sorry, that was the Devastator squads. No, they're the same price. Scratch what I just said. The Chaplain, 60 points for the Chaplain, which is the same. Chaplain Terminator armor, 75, 70 for the bike one. I believe are the same. Chaplain jump pack, I believe is the same, 75. Come to Heroes is 105. Desolation Squad took a reduction in price. So it's 180 points. And if you take 2 or more, then it's 210. So that is a discount. They do have play in Bastion. I talked about it a long time ago. It never turned out. But I think maybe if you give them the ability to um, be a battle line with the enhancement, if you add something to them with the new layouts, I think they might be useful. Devastator Squad, 120. Look at those guys. Drop pods, don't use them, 70 points. Eliminator Squad, 75, no change. Eradicators, 90 for the first 2. So, and then that's for the 3, and then 180. Let's see. Eradicators. Yeah, that's the same. But then if you take the third one, then they go up points. So 100 and 190. We already got the preview for the Eradicators. That was 70 and 90. So the first 2 are first 2 units are 70 points, and the third one is 80 points. So some of those other content creators kind of put that up. So the drop pod, sadly, as much as I love it, I want to use it. It just they have to do something different with it. It takes up too much space. It's just not a good option. However, the Fire Strike servo turrets. Here I am watching Scary go 5-1 with some Fire Strike servo turrets and Hammer Strike or Hammerfall bunkers at a grand tournament. That is 75 points. So I don't believe that changed in price. The Hammerfall bunker, 175. Heavy Intercessor Squad. All right, so I'm going to go a stop on this little guy for a moment. So they didn't change in price, which is 100 points. However, I think it's Heavy Intercessors meta. So if you're taking disposition that is taken hold, there's a few things, and we'll go into videos on how to list build. There's some things that you want. And one of those things is something that is durable that can park itself on your expansion objective. And heavy intercessors are awesome at this. So, for those that don't know, if they take a 1 damage shot, they +1 to their armor save. Plus, they have increased toughness and wounds, and they have long range weaponry that are 2 damage each. You can also add in a Gravis Captain who has half damage if things are allocated to him, which means if someone's trying to precision him out, he's taking half damage. Or if he's the last one alive, he's taking half damage. You can do some fun things with him. Ceramite Sentinels, because he's reducing CP down to 1. Ceramite Sentinels have access to Armor of Content. and he also could do some fun things with that offensively. In Bastion Task Force, you can also take him in there. You can give him precision so that he is giving his unit precision because it's going to be leading a battle line unit. So all of them are going to be hitting with damage to precision weapons from a long range, hopefully from an objective. And then you also have access to the -1 to wound if something tough is shooting at them, which is likely since they're more tough. So a lot of little funsies. I also forgot about the revive Gravis character in Ceramite Sentinels that you can do. It's just a lot of funsies that you can do with that, guys. So I think at least one heavy intercessor squad might be on the menu for us going forward as an option. Intercessors were kind of the thing, but if you take a look at our dispositions, there's not a lot of missions that really want to deal with our home objective anymore. So being sticky is not really important. While it does shoot a lot of bolts, I think we just need some more oomph in the list that's either more durable and higher damage. And I think for an increased cost of 20 points, I think heavy intercessors are where to go. I'll read up on our that. Let's see here. Lunar. I told you I'd hold the flag for you. I'm on board. I'm on board. It's the time of the chonk. Yes, so I think that's something that hasn't been discussed around the the internet yet, but I think that's going to be something that is an option for us to give us that durability and a take and hold disposition. Hellblaster squads, 110 points. Intercessor squad, or Inceptor squad, I'm sorry, is 120 at that. I don't think there's a change there. It does have a tax on it, though. So there's that. Incursor squads, 85 points with a tax now. Inferno squad is now 85 points. Both of those, well, the incursors went up 5 points per model, and then the Infernus went down, which actually is a little bit surprising to me because Infernus provide battle shock, and battle shock is much more important now. So that's a little bit surprising to me. Infiltrator squads went up in points. Not surprising because we will see a lot of strategic reserves and deep striking, I imagine. So this will be something that will be going up in price. The second, or I'm sorry, the first and second is the 110, and then it's 120. Intercessor squads are 80. They stay the same. Invader ATV is at 60 points. The Invictor Tactical Battle Suit, or War Suit, sorry, is 125. Same. Judiciar is 55 points, way down from the 70 points that it was. We've talked about this significantly. Fights first is not nearly as important anymore. It still can be useful at 55 points. It's getting to the point where you can take several of them and not care. Again, we're kind of moving into Hero Hammer land just because of fast rolling and how that works. 55 points, I think that's almost the stage where you can take a few of these and not be hurt too badly to give yourself additional fights first across the board. But as note, as I talked here, it gives the leader, if you're following along with me, you can see that it gives a numerous different units that you can take or it can lead. It does not show support. So do not believe the app. Land Raider, the regular first two is 220. The third one goes to 240. I believe that is the same, except for the tax. Land Raider Redeemer, ooh, it's 250 for the first two. That is down. Land Raider Redeemer stocks All right, so you get the tax, you go up to the 270 is what we're paying. So it's a 20-point reduction for those. That's pretty healthy. Let's see. Land speeder. All right, I talked about these guys. These are going to be aggressively priced, I said, right? Sub 100 points. That's aggressively pointed, in my opinion. 95 points. You're not taking them to kill things. You're taking them to be a support piece that are really annoying. They will do chink damage to things because it does have the hog on it. It also has a multi melta and some missiles. So that's going to do some damage to a monstrous creature, um, a vehicle. It's not going to kill it, but it'll take a few wounds off of it, and then you're gonna just bounce it back behind terrain. So if you're going into Fulgaris, which now has some more limited options that can go with, not the ones that we would like to go. BTF, I'm talking to you. But if you go with Fulgaris, you can do some more fun things with it, like dropping them in on turn one. I really like the land speeders. Um, Yeah, that's why I bought 3. Right now, they can only take them in units of 1, but I suspect you potentially will be able to take them in 3s like we used to once upon a year. So, but they're very healthy. Let's see, the lieutenant. I believe this guy went down 10 points. Yes, he's now 145. He can lead basically anything that we need him to lead, giving ourselves something really cheap to add to a unit and give yourself lethal hits for 45 points. Sign me up. Sign me up. For those of you that are playing Gladius or Bastion Task Force MSU style, lieutenants are your best friend. Add them on to your assault intercessor squads, and they're going to do some powerhouse things for you. It's basically for 45 points, you get some power fist and plasma shots. It added on to your intercessors, which are already pretty good, and we can't complain about that. Lieutenant in Phobos armor is going to be 45 points. Possibly some skew takes with that guy. Um, yeah, he's actually I think went down. Yeah, 10 points. So I think he potentially could be attached to some reavers, which I think is going to be something that possibly be important. So he's something you might want to watch. Okay. We have Lieutenant Reaver Armor, down 10 points there. Lieutenant Combi Weapon, he's 85 points, still the same. His nerfed self, we're still taking those guys. Outraider Squad, 70 points, which is down. And 6 models is 140, which is down. But if you add the ATV, it's another 60 points. So these guys got cheaper, but I will say they're going to be much harder, much harder to maneuver on our boards. So yeah, I love the Reavers, famous dog as well. So they're actually in my list. I've been using them for quite a while. I like that -1 OC option, and with Taken Hold, I think it's going to be stonks up. All right, so Predator Annihilator is 135. And then this also has attacks, goes up to 145. Predator Destructor is 140. Razorback is 95. We have the Redemptor. This is the one of the two that have the special rules. So it's at the standard is at the let's see, I just want to get the comparison real quick here. Okay. So it's 195 for the one model for the first two, which is down 10 points. But if you take the plasma incinerator, it goes up to the 205, which we're currently paying. So it's down in points if you're taking the heavy onslaught cannon. but the Macroplasma Incinerator, I think, is going to go up. Now, with that being said, 11th edition is very, very punishing to plasma on vehicles, especially because you take 3 mortal wounds on a 1 or 2. I don't think we're taking plasma on this guy anymore. We're probably taking the heavy onslaught cannon. But what do I know? We got the Reaver Squad. It is at 75 points. I think this one was the same. Nope, it was 80, so down 5 points. Excuse me. Rhino 75 Scout Squad went down. So 65 points for the first two, which is probably what we're taking anyway. And then the third one goes to 75. So Scout Squads are very good still. You probably want 1 or 2, no matter what, to do your secondaries. You need to have things that do secondaries or primary mission actions, especially if you're in priority assets, if you're doing reconnaissance, because you're crazy, or recon. These things are still important. Secondaries, while we've been talking a lot about the primary missions, secondaries still are out there. You still have to do actions, and you still want to be able to give your opponent a threat to drop into their back. So, Stormhawk Interceptor is 155. You're never going to be using that thing ever, ever, ever. We have the Storm Raven, which is 280, and it goes up to 300 points. Now, it did lose aircraft, so you can actually use it, but it's still not enough weaponry for what you get. And you can't use it with the one detachment that really liked it after they nerfed it. So, yeah. So we have the next 3 Storm Speeders. So Hail Strike, Hammer Strike, and Thunder Strike. So it's the Hail Strike is 105. Hammer Strike is 130 and 135 for the Thunder Strike. Those ones are the Hail Strike is down 10. The Hammer Strike is up 5, and the Thunder Strike is still the same. So I'll pause there for a moment and look at the chat. Yes, I am going to be talking on detachments once I'm done with these points because we're going to be going over the dispositions. I'm just trying to fly through these points as quick as I can so we can get to the juicy stuff. So I think that's what everyone really kind of wants to talk about. So, but because that's what we're talking about, the MFM. So, all right. So Storm Talons 165. We're still not taking that. Suppressor Squad 75 points, never changed. Tactical Squads 140. Still not taking it. Tech Marine skew take at 55 points. So there's some lists of Iron Storm. You can use that. You can still use that for Black Templar. There's lots of good lists that we can still use. It's going to be one of those Black Templars lists that are very effective if you like shooting. So still a solid take. All right, here's the other one that has that weapon change. So Terminator Assault Squad is 155. So, and that is for the Lightning Claw version, which is currently priced at 180. So that is a significant drop of 25 points. I'll take it because actually, if you do the math, I don't know how it's going to work out with the fast rolling now because that changes the math hammer on it a little bit, but at least in 10th edition, if you do the math on it against Marine equivalent models and even more against single wound models, the Lightning Claw actually outperforms the Thunderhammer against equivalent strength things or below. So this is actually something that you might want to take. 155 is very aggressively priced. You do pay an extra 5 points for the Thunderhammer, but I almost like the Lightning Claws better. You're not going to get that extra strength, but for 155, you get deep striking threat. You do have 6 attack with them, re-rolling. Very durable bodies. Solid, solid, solid. Let's see here. Thunderheck gunship. I've never seen this on the board ever. Never ever. But it's 840 points. Vanguard Veteran Squad. So we have the points here. It's 100 points. and 200 points for the thing. So I believe that's the same, except for the tax that we're going to pay 110 and 210. So this is strangely in the app, as mentioned, not the new rules. Now, I tried to, before the stream, find the rules on the Warhammer community website. I couldn't find it. It was in one of those preview pages. If someone could find it and put it in the link, I would appreciate that because I'm not going to go digging for it anymore. But I do actually think that these might be a valuable trade up piece, especially if you do not have a lot of damage to weaponry. So I think these are going to be useful. They right now don't have options in the storm shield. That's going to be really where it's going to be the money is when you can get storm shields on these guys, which will I suspect be kits that will be coming soon rather than later. But with all of us having bought uh, the Armageddon box set, it's useful. If you don't want them, you can always send them my way because I can certainly use them. I have one. I need another set, so I mean, I'll take donations. Vindicator, it's going to be 185 for the Vindicator. Let's see here. I think that's the same. Yep. 175 for the Whirlwind, which I believe is the same. Nope, it's actually down 15 points. Scratch that. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns. There's a lot. Sorry about that. Took a half an hour to get through all that. 45 minutes to get through all that. So overall, I think most of my lists that I like went up or went down in points with the characters because I used lieutenants a lot, so those one actually went down, so that didn't cost me anything. If I didn't use those characters that went down, like the apothecary, ancients, things of that nature, there was probably a slight increase of maybe 10 to 30 points depending on your list. So not too bad. I think that's very manageable with the rebalancing of the price. I can handle that one. So really, it's just dropping an enhancement. But now that we have access to more enhancements, do we want to do that? We'll see. So overall, the points are not too bad. There's some really cool ones in there, like the Land Raider Redeemer. I like that a lot. I like the character drop points. Those are really nice. Um, I think it's spicy. The Desolation Squad is 180. Yes, it's not a close combat thing, but I think that can find a place in Taken Hold or Priority Assets, or even if you're playing Purge the Foe. I think that might be something that's worthwhile. Indirect is a lot worse than it was before. So there's that. You're doing snap firing with it now, which is not as good. But if you have line of sight and you're not needing that, and they just have a lot of shots. So, and if you make them battle line and you shoot something, you can Auspex scan something with them in Bastard Task Force. So there's that as well. You just have to hit once. So detachments. All right, we're going to get to this. We're going to get to this. Okay, so Matt Keep. Yeah, we're gonna get to this. There's things. Okay. So I'm not gonna go through all the points on these things. Everyone has really seen these at this point, so we're gonna kind of talk about the main ones that we're kind of going over. And really, I'm not gonna go over most of the Space Marine ones. There's a few that we use. I'll talk about those like Bastion, Ceramite Sentinels, um, Gladius, and Stormlance, perhaps Iron Storm. So I don't think any of the points on these things enhancements change too much, but I'm not going to go digging through it. It'll take way too much time. I really want to talk about the detachments. All right. So I'm going to skip Anvil. I'm going to skip Armored Pier Tip because we already talked about that a lot. Bastion Task Force. All right. It's 3DP, everyone. It's 3DP. All right. So when Games Workshop previewed the detachments week and a half ago, and they had the list in there, it showed 2DP, right? We were all excited. Yes, how could this possibly be 2DP? Then we started being, oh, well, we can do all these different combos. Awesome. I know that we've had many conversations, and at least in the implausible nature Discord, about how we expected it to be 3DP. So this really surprised us. It surprised me and Alex. We were led to believe that it was going to be 3DP from our sources. When we saw 2DP, we were like, what the heck? So that's why in our streams and videos, we were kind of talking about how this is very exciting. And then today comes and we see that 3DP. Now, if you pull up the Space Marine detachment, it is 2DP. Why is that? Well, I think the easy answer is that the only chapter that really can utilize it to full effectiveness is the Black Templars. We've won, I don't have an exact count, but in the last 2 or 3 months, easily a half a dozen or more, possibly as many as a dozen tournaments with Bastion Task Force, primarily with the 20-man squads, but there's a couple in MSU style. So it is something that has been successful for us. It has most of the tools to be successful. The only one really that is missing that we potentially could have is Armor of Contempt and Fight on Death. But we do have options for that in the Ancients, especially now. So, does it make me disappointed? Yes, it does. And both of the Black Templar Discords were blowing up this morning, blowing up at this. I know there's a lot of anger at it. I know it's sad. It very is. But if we're being honest with ourselves, and maybe this is just positive Bob here, if we were being honest with ourselves, we were expecting it to be 3DP. We got surprised in the preview, and now we're just playing it back to what it is. But with that being said, I feel like it's a little bit more of a slap in the face because we've always taken point cost increases for the sins of the Ultramarines because maybe this unit is really good with the Ultramarines and they're successful and we take that points cost. Why isn't it not the same for them now that we have Bastion Task Force? It's good for us. Why aren't they paying 3 DP? It's just very odd to me. And I know that they're now separating all of these points costs, and I think in the long run that's really long, but it does stick a little bit in my craw that they can't pay or they don't pay 3 DP on it. And I think a lot of people are considering this a nerf. It really isn't a nerf, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, because you are essentially status quo. You're playing Bastion Task Force as it is currently in the meta that you're playing right now. There's nothing to change other than the points and the different rules that are changing. So it's disappointing that we cannot add some of our cool, flavorful things on top of it. Like I was potentially looking at doing uh, Vulgaris or potentially the Living Miracle on top of that. But it is what it is. It is still very serviceable. It is the detachment's not nerfed at all. It has access to take and hold, which is, in my opinion, the better of the two ones that you're probably going to want to go for in priority assets are take and hold. I like take and hold a lot. I think the missions play better for us in general, but it'll be personal preference what you like. But Bastion is really good for that style, even if it's at 3DP. It does suck that we can't add on one of our 1DP detachments. 100% agree with you. Not disputing that, but I don't think it's a nerf. So that's my little spew on that. I'm not discounting what anyone feels about that. That's just my personal opinion on it. It's not a nerf. It just I kind of consider it as like, oh, well, they probably should have just said in the preview that there was going to be separated points. Um, but I don't know what you guys think about that. I'm I'm open to having conversation. But I'll be here for a little bit. So, what do you guys think? Leader can't see it as a nerf when we never had it as a thing in the first place. Sucks for sure, but I would love to have a supercharged EC. Yeah, I mean, everyone was taking and probably still is taking the EC in Bastion Task Force, right? So it'd be awesome to be able to add that on there and just get a little bit more on it, especially in a take and hold situation where the EC really loves that -3 detection range for hidden. Now you're just going to be running naked with it. Um, so yeah, I was a little disappointed that Wrathful Possession got the got the nerf bat, if you would consider it the nerf bat. I would, because they basically took all the cool things out of it and cut it down. Um, I'm not going to ring about it. I mean, it's still going to fit into some of the detachments. It does play into, in my opinion, really well into COV, um, Companions of Units, which is a 2DP, obviously. So Wrathful and Companions really mesh together because you're using chaplain models in there, which is instant synergy. I feel like that's going to be one of our probably more competitive takes for that. Do I think it's going to still beat Bastion or Gladius or even Ceramite Sentinels? No. I think those three are still going to be the top dogs competitively, um, even with the synergy that comes from Wrath Procession and Companions of Humans. But I think it'll be a good combo. You can make some really good lists with that. It does damage up, and the movement tricks are really cool. Um, so, so the app is correct on Bastion and the Task Force is 3DP, but if you are in Space Marines, generic Space Marines, it is two. Just to clarify, that's where that 2D. Um, Xvert 82. So someone's new to BT and still learning their collection. What detachment or combo of detachments would you recommend since they are radically changed Wrathful Procession? Okay, so I would probably say the easiest and probably best one right now for a new player is not one of our detachments. Um, Ceramite Sentinels is going to be very effective at what it does. It's very straightforward. It doesn't have a lot of complicated setup for what you have to do. So basically, it's all about standing on the terrain, which in 11th edition, there's a lot more of it. So it's going to be very effective, and you get rerolls. And then you use your stratagems, and you kill stuff. And that's taken hold. So very easy to play and use, and you're going to get a ton of rerolls for it. Bastion Task Force is also very, in my opinion, easy but powerful. But there is some synergy in setup because you do have to utilize the Auspice scan option, and that gives you the rerolls against something that you've hit in the shooting phase or in the fight phase to get reroll one to hit, which is important for the whole synergy of the stratagems. And it also has advance and charge and advance and action and fallback and do all kinds of fun things. movement shenanigans. But the problem with that is a lot of new players just balls to the wall and charge out and advance charge and then get themselves killed. So there is problems that you need to have a little bit of experience with that to use. As far as the combination ones, if you're not doing that, commanding vehemence is very high skill, very high skill use, because of all the movement shenanigans that you can do, and its power is in all of the movement phase and now the fight phase. It does have some power. I think that's going to be a stronger one if you've got some experience. So you Wrath of Procession and Companions will be really good there. But I think one that is really for our detachments, looking to be pretty strong, is Vanguard Spearhead and Wrathful Procession. I think that one looks the most promising for ours. Da-da-da-da. Oh, that's a good point, Adam Jack. Let's talk about that just a moment. They mentioned you have to pay points for the Emperor's Champion's enhancement. Guiding Omens, it's 15 points. Now, we were expecting like 40 and hoping it wasn't like 40. So 15 is minimal compared to what Alex and I were expecting. Um, but we still wanted it to be free. What's the point of paying 1 DP for a detachment to get rules and then have to pay for it? It's just dumb. I agree. It should have been free. It should have been free. Okay, so being thematic, expert, I think that I'll go back to it as Vanguard Spearhead and Wrathful Procession. Those are our detachments that I would go for and utilize those. Our brand new discounted ancients, which if you're buying the Armageddon box, guess what? You are getting an ancient. So that's right on their alley. And if you bought the Crusade Ancients, give you some options there as well. So I think that's going to be the one thematic one. There's a lot of extra durability in that one. I'm sorry, not Vanguard Spearhead. Sorry, what am I talking about? Vindication Task Force. Vindication Task Force. So everything I said, I was talking about Vindication Task Force and Wrathful Procession. Don't mind me. No wonder you're all confused. Yes, I put it in the chat. I'm flipping back between the chat and the MFM. So, all right, that's where I think we have a lot of options. So, detachment wise, that'll give you access to priority assets, which is a very strong option for us. This one has a combination. Priority assets really wants you to take and hold one objective or hold it, wants you to kill something, usually on an objective, and do an action of some sort. That's basically what priority assets is for all of their missions against all of the different things. So it's a very well rounded mission. It's basically the jack of all trades, which Space Marines are very jack of all trades. But taking Wrathful Procession gives you access to take and hold if you would like just the more objective based options, which VTF really is strong at. Uh, Hellwrecked, I would probably personally go. If I could not take any of the Space Marine detachments, I had to work with just ours. I probably am leaning towards VTF versus COV. Simply because I do like the durability that VTF gives us, and I do like the options that Wrathful Procession gives us in the Take and Hold, which is probably my preference. And you can, if you take more than 2 units of fights first, 2 or 3, and they are combat units, that's when fights first actually becomes relevant. So if you only have 1 unit that is fights first and you get into combat, that your opponent is going to pick that combat to fight first in to negate your fight first. It really only comes into play is if you have a second fight first that's in combat, so then you can be the next one to pick a fights first option. So if you have a bunch of different things in fights first, you can certainly uh, get some extra options. So Judiciar is down in points as mentioned. It's 55 points, I believe, if I remember right. So you could do that, and you do have options in those detachments to give fight first and wrathful. You also have, um, let's see here, one sec. I get to the right thing here. Blah, 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 blah. Gotta get to the right one. Sorry, I'm not prepped. All right. So you could also combo VTF with Marshall's household if you so choose. That'll give you some higher damage options in our list that doesn't really have a ton of damage bonuses. So that is something that I saw being floated around Marshall's household with VTF. Um, you can get some fights first there as well, but obviously, Sword Brethren are not too terribly durable, and VTF does like to have things on foot on objectives. So there's that. They also do not have two differing dispositions. They're both priority assets, which is unfortunate. If you're using a split detachment, I I guess I would prefer to have two different dispositions, so that if you're facing an opponent in uh, a tournament setting or a random player, then you have the option to pick prior to the game. So you're not just loaded into one disposition. So um, maybe take and hold your facing like a Necron army. And they're like, oh man, you're not going to be able to kill all those Necrons. Having the ability to switch over to priority assets instead. So you only have to kill one thing and maybe hold one objective and do an action. That's a lot easier than trying to take and kill and try and hold more objectives. So take and hold have some bad matchups with some powerful enemies out there right now. So all right, so Stormlance does have some play. I'm not a fan of it because there is some things that do focus on mounted specifically, that basically makes the stratagems dead in your hand. But it does give you advantage charge for 2 DP essentially. So there's that. I do feel like generic Marines use this better than us because we have better detachments. Gladius Tax Force comes to mind. That's still 3 DP for us. Still very powerful. It doesn't gain a buff, doesn't lose anything, in my opinion. Basically the same as it is. I think a lot of the player base is really kind of turned off on Gladius at this point, but it's there for you if you want. It's also a priority asset. You have access to the advanced charge as well. Godhammer, if I do like Godhammer, there is also benefit to the Battle Shock ability. So I think there is definitely play. But you do have to worry about the fact that, again, you're going to have less of a footprint to be able to maneuver around the board because of the terrain. So that's something you have to be aware of. Now you do have stratagem use to be able to plow through some of that to get around, but it is resource heavy. Um, and there's certain units that obviously are better for it than others. You want three weapon skill units rather than two weapon skill units because they don't gain the benefit of the +1 to hit. But yes, I really like Godhammer. I think it's probably the most fun of ours to play. I think it's viable. I think it could surprise people. I don't think in a long GT that it will be more than a 50% win rate, probably closer to a 33 to 40% win rate. But I really like it. I like the idea of transports, and I think transport rule is significantly better now that you can actually disembark into close combat, which is something that we have a stratagem for in that detachment. I wish they would have done some changes to that in the data pack, but it is what it is. Um, so, yes, there is hope for it. You win by turn 2 or game over in Godhammer. Yep. Let's see here. Tournaments will require the disposition during its list submission, I believe. It's very possible, um, but you still have an option looking at the other lists that are submitted. If you have a chance, you see on the opponents that there's a ton of Necron players, then maybe you don't want to take that take and hold, and you switch it when you're submitting your lists. So you have a little bit of planning that you can do with that if they end up going that route. Um, so that is a good point. In the larger GTs or super majors, they probably will have you pick in the list phase, which is fine, I suppose. But in a not tournament setting where a lot of the player base are playing, you do have the option to pick. I do think it's going to be a little bit interesting talking on the more competitive route is how the tournaments are going to be set up as far as the layouts go, because your disposition will determine your layout. They're going to have to give us a lot of time to set up those boards in the morning or in the game. So, because it's entirely every game is different essentially, and you have to set up the board, reset all of the terrain, every game potentially. So I don't know. Takes up long enough just to deploy as it is. 30 minutes just to deploy. Now you have to spend all that time setting up a board. It's crazy. Get the measurements right. So it'll be interesting how they decide to do that. Shutter any? I am insane. I really want to try first company task force with Wrathful Procession with Termy Chaplains. You'll have to tell me how that goes. I'm not brave enough to try it. My time is limited, being a father of two young girls and working full time. So I have to manage my time as best as I can. and that's not one that I'm willing to spend my 4 hours on. But you can let me know. Execrators are, I think they were the same. I went over them really quick. Where are you? 60 points. I think they were the same. I think they're 60 points now. Yeah, they're 60 points, so they didn't change the price. Exvert, another question. How much is the 20-man Crusader squad impacted by the 9-inch coherency? Challenging to make them dead on arriving. So this is really huge, honestly. So one thing that is a big negative for the large 20-man unit is the fact that you have to move it, and it takes a lot of time to move a 20-man unit. Um, that's one of the reasons why I don't play Black Tide, is it burns a lot of time. Now it takes up even more time to make sure and measure that every single model is now within 9 inches. That's really kind of a big thing because one of the big bonuses to the 20-man unit is that you can spread it out or contract it depending on what you need it to do. Spreading it out obviously allows you to screen out the part of the board better. It allows you to get from point A to point B with one unit, whether that be two objectives and score on two objectives. It allows you to go around corners of buildings and stay hidden. Um, or if you need to contract and you can shove everything into one spot, you can. But the 9-inch coherency forces you to be in a smaller footprint, which takes a lot of the utility away from the 20-man unit. It's a lot harder to screen things when you can't spread out in a line or screen deep strikes, because you don't have that line essentially that you can do, or angles. Now it's a big circle and you're stuck doing that. So, and that is a good point. When you're also doing your combats, and you have to still make sure that they're all in 9-inch coherency. So basically, now you're stuck with a big circle that you're plowing into your opponent in a big circle. And even with the 2-inch engagement range, I think we're still going to struggle in making sure that everything is in there. Especially now you have to combine all of your opponent's units, so you're going to be losing some of those attacks. But as Nate Model mentions, that's why Companion is a positive. So you do have some options. So instead of the 3-inch pylon, you can do 6 inches and you can wrap around so you can stay within an inch. You have some additional options. So the 20-man Crusader squad could be an option for you in COV there. So that's a good call out, Nat. Very good call out. We do have Stormlance for 2DP, where everyone else pays 3. I guess I didn't notice that. I'll trust you on it. I don't have that thing up anymore. It is 2DP, but I still probably am not playing it, just simply because of the dead stratagems. We have Advance and Charge in other forms with stratagems plenty, like Bastion, Task Force, Gladius, but those do not allow you to add in the 1TP, obviously. So, yes, if you want to get Advance and Charge, that's an option to give you those access to those 1DPs. Um, it's actually kind of funny. I was wondering if they were going to accidentally include the Librarius detachment in here, but I don't see it. So that would have been kind of funny if they included it in there. I'm sure I would have heard something about that on the Discord. Yes, Exvert, it's more challenging in the 20-man squads, but not impossible to use. There is some ways around the 9-inch coherency. Yeah, there's the one thing I like about 11th edition here, is that there's lots of options to do lots of things. Customization is really, really uh, open with this. So the new rules allow for close combat to be really good, but it also opens up the opportunity for shooting to be possible if you like that. The new terrain rules, I think, are positive. It gives you a much more varied board. I do like that there's more of it and that it doesn't necessarily have to be ruins. I personally like ruins, but having some forests and deserts and some more thematic boards are going to be really interesting. I'm happy to see that there are some options for that. But I really, really do like how the disposition of each detachment works out. I think they did a really good job of playing to the rules and putting the dispositions of what they're good at. For example, Ceramite Sentinels has taken hold. It's very obvious what that detachment's trying to do, and they picked a detachment or disposition that matches that. So I think they really did a good job across the game from what I've seen, picking those dispositions. And I really like the thematic feel of matching up, say, Purge the Foe against Taken Hold and getting your missions based on that. So I think what you're going to have to do going forward is really kind of take a look at what your disposition is and build around that. Yes, you're going to be having your detachment. Obviously, you want to take advantage of the rules that are in the detachment, but really the most important thing is how are you going to score your primary points? So if you do not think about that when you're list building, because we're not all about objectives anymore, you need to be worrying about how you are going to be utilizing the disposition scoring. Give me one sec here. I'm going to link in the chat. There's actually a website that is very good. They're going to give free advertisement from me for you guys. Just going to pull it up real quick. It shows all of these. You may know of it already, but it is very handy. Like it. So you can see what your dispositions and how to score your primary points. It gives all the cards. It's a really cool app, web based. You can kind of see it. It's a safe link. You can click it, I promise. Yeah, starting in 11th edition is great because while 10th edition was a really balanced edition, in my opinion, very competitive, and they did a really good job of rebalancing things fairly quickly. And win rates were pretty close to the Goldilocks zone for the most part. Um, you don't learn any of the habits of the 10th edition, so that's positive. So you're learning about the dispositions and how to score your points from 11th edition. So if you need to plan, use that gdmissions.app/11th to really kind of utilize that and look at your matchups, see how you're going to score your points while you're doing your list building. Because if you already know your detachment, you already know what your disposition is, most likely, and you can see the 5 different matchups that you're going to be playing. So that's going to be really important. And you can, it's not my app, Steven. It just, I actually saw it from another content creator and I stole it. Or rather, didn't steal it, but I pulled it up and I'm like, this is pretty cool. So, da, 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 da. So it's very useful. So I would highly recommend you guys using that. Hopefully, when this stream stops, then it'll load the live chat pretty quickly. Let me see. Reading up. There was a couple of things. So Exvert, I'll get to you because yours is gonna be more complicated. But Shutter, any thoughts on priority versus purge versus take and hold? So those are going to be the three. I'm going to make a video on this, but those are going to be the three that I think we should leverage. Um, of those, I think purge is going to be the least likely to be taken. You can do it. There's a lot of things that we can do to kill, but I talked a little bit about this earlier in the stream. I think Space Marines do not kill things as good as things like the Necrons or potentially the Tau, or there's others out there that kill things better than we do. And if they're taking Purge, which is likely, then they are not going to be on an even standpoint. So I think we can kill things when we need to, and we can spike up. There's options for that, um, especially if we're taking a highly elite unit lists. I think that can spike upwards, but um, I think that's my third take. Secondarily, I think that priority assets is the second uh, best one, simply because its Space Marines are very adaptable. Typically, what those missions do is you're going to be holding or taking an objective, one of them. You will also do an action, and then you're probably killing something on an objective. There's some variations to that, but that's essentially what you're going to be doing. Something with an objective, an action, and then killing something. So you have to do three different things to get the max points. And Space Marines do that very well. It doesn't force you to do a lot of objectives. It doesn't force you to kill a lot of different things. It just has you do one thing. And it just has you do one action, which we're hopefully building into our list anyway. So that's something that is very effective for us, and I think is going to be really strong. However, I think our best take is going to be take and hold. That's what we are more used to playing right now, is the objective game. And why I think that is because most of us are used to that doing it anyway. We already are familiar with how to hold an objective or take an objective. And I do think that we have the ability to spike uh, instead of just doing one objective, taking a turn, you potentially up to two. And I think the objective game is something that we play very strong into. We're more durable than other things. And in general, we can build into that a little bit more, whether it be VTF or armor contempt options and the differing detachments. There's options for you. Plus, we also have hidden now. Now, with that being said, I don't think hidden is going to be more applicable other than the first turn, because what's that's going to do is just going to force your opponents that are shooty closer to you, and then it's not going to be applicable anymore. But it does give you at least a first turn, maybe second turn durability. But most of our armies are going to be meeting into the middle of the board with the expansions, and we do very well with the take and hold. Okay, let's see. Experts, getting back to your question, top three, beware, look out for this. So I think there's going to be a couple of things that we need to look out for that are going to be kind of the boogeymen right away. Tau, they do have, I don't remember their name. I do play Xenos armies. I do play Tau. I have a very small force, but I don't remember their detachments. But they do have a detachment of the one DP where they flex into stealth battle suits and being able to get really close to you and do a lot of damage. They're probably going to shift from Monka, which is the turn 1, 2, and 3 damage, which obviously with hidden is not going to be as good. So they'll switch into Kayun or Retaliation. Kayun is turn 3, 4, and 5 damage buffs. And then Retaliation Cadra is the deep striking one that gives them additional damage and strength and AP, I believe, if they're within 12 inches, maybe 6 inches. Um, Forgive me. But they're going to flex into that, and that's going to be really tough. So Tau got a ton of reductions in price in their points. They're going to be very cheap. You're going to have to kill a ton of screens, and they're going to shoot you really, really hard. You will have to learn how to play the Tau in 11th edition. They're going to be a very tough matchup right away in 11th edition. Secondarily, the Necrons have some really strong plays, especially the one detachment, 1 DP detachment, where they buff their immortals and their warriors. I think they're going to be really hard to kill. So that's one of the reasons why I'm talking about don't take Purge the Foe, because you got these things that are going to be super ridiculously hard to kill, and you're just not going to be able to do it. Necrons are also going to be really hard to deal with because they're going to be flooding the board with millions of warriors, and it's just going to be impossible to kill these guys. Um, Secondarily, I think there's going to be some Ultramarine matchups that are going to be really bad for us. The other ones don't look too bad in general. The other armies, I do think that the library is concave with maybe some Ultramarine options, whether are going to be good. Wardens of Ultramar are also going to be good. Um, so that's another one that's going to be good. But I haven't really looked really deep into the other ones to really know. So for sure, those two. The third one's a little bit amenable because I haven't looked into all the armies yet. But it's still early in the edition, and I still have time. Let's see. Got to read up. I missed some stuff. You guys were talking. If I miss something and I haven't read up far enough, please repeat it so I can get back to it. I'll probably stick around for probably maybe a half an hour more. So as long as you guys are still here in a half hour, I gotta eat. I haven't eaten yet. It's 9 o'clock now. Da, 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 da. Sorry, going back to the topic again, but companions have a strat named Dread Crusaders and Fueled by Faith. Yeah, I mean, they do have a lot of movement tricks that are positive. They do have damage buffs and enhancements, so I do think that CUV is going to be good. It is. I just think it's going to be a high skill detachment, just like it was in 10th edition, just because it's not very straightforward. You have to be very methodical in your movement, how to use those stratagems, when to use them. And if you don't, it's not going to work out well for you. But I do think that Wrathful Procession helps alleviate some of that. It's a little bit more straightforward. It gives you some durability with that. You have options, additional synergy with your chaplains. So I think it's going to be a good take. I think that's a natural take in this coming 11th edition. So I'd highly recommend playing it. You're only going to get better by playing it. So, and that's one of the ones that you're going to have to do. Yeah, we talked about the Black Templars get the Stormlands for 2. Um, Ryan, that's a good call out. 9-inch coherency is not wholly within, so you do gain about 1.5 more inches. So I guess technically the whole circle around the edges is like 10.5 inches, but you do have to be within 9 inches of all of your other models. But the total space is going to be about 10.5 inches or so. Good question, Adam Jack. Let's take a look at all of these different things. I don't think they gained access to that. I know a lot of The generic ones have access to our character or our units now. So let's go see. I didn't talk about that. No Marshall. Sad. No Castellan. Sad. Yeah. I mean, it would be nice, right? So I was pleasantly surprised that I saw that the apothecary can now join um, the Blade Guard veterans. I know that they did that for the Blood Angels, and there's other options for you. You're not stuck having to do um, just the lieutenants anymore or the captains. It would have been really nice to be able to have the Castellan and the Marshal be able to access them. But I do understand why they don't. Thematically, it would be very awesome, but I understand that they want to keep our specialty characters attached to our specialty units. And the generic ones, I think, have more adaptability. So I get it, but it still kind of sucks because our characters are typically better. Yeah, shout. There's a ton of things wrong with the app. Understandable. There's a lot of units, a lot of different points. I can give them a break, honestly. There's only a couple people working on the app, from what I understand, and this is a lot of work to have to program all this for a new edition. Um, but they haven't had a lot of time to do it. So, I mean, there's that. Hmm. One sec here. Someone's pinging me something. Nothing important. A small, struggling company. Give them a break. Yeah. I mean, that's fair, but I mean, I'm a forgiving person. Okay, so let's see. Do you have any questions for me? I know there's 60 of you still left in the chat. So thank you for guys joining me. I know it's 9 o'clock at night, for me at least. So it's late for some of you. If anyone's awake on the European side of the world or even Asia, it's probably exceptionally late for you guys or very early morning. So thanks for sticking around and coming in and chatting while I blabber to you guys. So yeah, if there's any questions, I still stick around for probably 20 minutes unless you guys don't got anything else for me. So I like doing this. I'm gonna start doing it a little bit more because I have some adaptability and yeah. I just won't be as fancy as Alex. He's our editor for Implausible Nature, so I made him make our thumbnail. He's traveling. I'm like, hey, make my thumbnail before you leave. So midday in Australia. Yeah. What do you think our best 1 point detachment is? I think it's going to be our EC1. Um, I think the Living Miracle is going to be the most usable, honestly. Um, Most natural to add into something, any 2DP one. I don't like its disposition, but most of us are taking the Emperor's Champion already, and then this just supercharges them. It's annoying that you have to pay 15 points for the stupid in, enhancement. Dumb. It's dumb. But I think it's the best one because the Emperor's Champion is good. This makes him better, and instead of being the MVP. I think he's going to be the MVP too. I still don't like the fact that it is a detachment for one character, though. I think that's really annoying and very disappointing. It would have been nice if they had some other characters that were applicable in there somewhere, but I understand. I get it. Thematics, but I think it's probably the best. But I do think Wrathful Procession is the option to synergize with the other two DP detachments a little bit better in some specific cases. So that can take it better. So, like if you're pairing, for example, VTF or COV with Raffle, I think Raffle's probably better in those specific cases, simply because it synergizes better with those two DP. But overall, Living Miracle, you can put that into anything and it works. So by factor of that, you don't have to build around it other than taking the Emperor's Champion. Um, it's basically plug and play. Hmm. Oh, the special rule for the Emperor's Champion. Ah, you'd think I would know this. Give me a second. All these new rules. I haven't memorized everything. So we have, let's see, once per battle, you can give the devastating wounds. I think that's like an auto take every time, and the 2+ attack is going to be auto take. I personally really like the -3 detection range. Um, that's probably the one that I'm going to be taking most often. But Augury of Retribution is kind of mean. I I think that's hilarious against something large if you can get in there. Heroic Intervention Stratagem -1. I think against the right uh, character opponent, if they are taking lots of characters, I think that might be a good one for us. Because Heroic Intervention into a character unit obviously is really good for Emperor Champion. But I don't think we're going to do anything with Harbor of Judgment. So really, it's going to be a tie between Omen of Sacred Intervention for the -1 CP for Heroic Intervention or Unforeseen Paths. Or I'm sorry, Foreseen Paths of Unholy. Those two are going to be like the third one, and then maybe like 1 out of 50, you'll take the hazardous one. So that's my opinion. Yeah, you can out OC with our grind them down sword brethren. Just take that 10-man unit with the apothecary. He's support now, I think. Yep, he's support. Can revive him, and you can take your apothecary and your marshal and put them on your sword brethren squad, 10-man squad, and then just park them on your expansion and just churn up your 22 OC and just grind down those 20-man units and death guard and do it. Spend that 500 points. No, I actually do really like 1+ OC if it's in stratagem form, like Cerebite Sentinels. I don't want to have it as always on. There's been some really good suggestions on some of the things that you could do with that instead of the one OC, but I think it's forgettable. It does have some niche play, so that if you are not in close combat with something and grinding him down, I can't believe they said that in the stream. So Adam Capillary, the the competitive player. I know he wasn't allowed to really talk bad about things when he's on the Games Workshop faction focuses, but I could just see him cringing when he was saying the things that he was saying. I feel like he had that internal debate. Obviously, I didn't talk to him, so I don't know what he's actually thinking, but like, you know, all the commentary that I've seen about that detachment has not been as positive as they made it sound in the faction focus video. But there is decent stratagems, admittedly, in the Marshall's household. So, I mean, it's free rules. For one CP, if you're taking Sword Brethren, I'm not going to say no. Just disappointing. They could have done better with it. Lunar Sniper says I'll end up going +2 attacks and -1 CP for Rogue, then alternating the hazardous detection range, extra dev, be enemy dependent. I mean, that's fair. If there's not a lot of characters and you don't think you're going to go in, I guess that's fair. Imperial Knights or Chaos Knights have a lot of character knights, so depending, well, if they're taking the little guy knights, they're not doing that, but there's options for them. That spikes up really high. But I think there's going to be a lot more characters out there simply because of fast rolling. We talked about that early in the stream. Characters are going to be important, and we have the benefit of having some really good characters in general, whether it be the Marshal, Castellan, Chaplain Grimaldus is still really good, even at their 110 price, and High Marshal Helberg is really good at 120. I was hoping he was going to see a little bit of a points decrease, but I understand not. He's still a beast. But I was very pleasantly surprised to see the reduction of the Crusade Ancient because of his ineptitude in 10th. Now he's something that you don't necessarily mind taking to give you some fight on death. Um, and he's got Mastercraft Power Sword. He's no slouch in combat. So, Knight Castellan as allied unit. To be honest with you, I don't do a lot of allied stuff because there's not a ton of synergy between your detachment and the allied unit, and especially the case of a knight. The big knights are very expensive. It takes up a lot of points, and you're not getting any synergy with your army with it. Um, so it's a cool model. It does output a lot of things, but it doesn't gain anything for it. It's just a big model. It's a stat check for your opponent. Now, assassins are good because they do give you something. Um, the Collatus is still good with the Vectora being popping off of the board and being able to drop in elsewhere. Still does combat shenanigans. That's really handy. So she's still very, very important. So she helps your army without having to have detachment rules. So that's what you kind of want to look at when you're taking allies. Something that gives you something more than just what their weaponry is on the board. And right now, in my opinion, that's only really the Calidus. Uh, yeah, Emperor's Champion. That was really unasked for, but welcome change. So, for those that have not noticed, the Emperor's Champion now gives devastating wounds to his whole unit. as his baseline ability if fighting a character unit. That is huge. You're going to be spiking up for sure. That was something that was very unexpected, and I'm not going to turn that down. That made the Emperor Champion go from MVP to MVPP. Yeah, I'll talk about anything. This is kind of like open hour. I got open hour, but I got 10 minutes. So, my favorite paint ranges. So, in all honesty, my since ninth edition, um, I haven't painted a single one of my Black Templars models. I know it's shame, shame, shame. So, I think it was ninth edition when the Primaris came out. So, we basically had to start from scratch from that. And I am a retail manager. So, I work a lot of hours and I didn't have time to paint a whole new army over again. And that's about when Plausible Nature YouTube came about. And one of the people that was a member of that in the Discord is Nameless Demon. Shout out to Nameless Demon. And he's a very good painter, but he was my follower, one of my followers on my website way back when I was doing my firstborn painting. So I painted all of my firstborn army. Um, anyway, long story short, I don't paint my own stuff now, and he uses a combination of one things. But I do paint my Xenos armies in my spare time because I don't play them all the time, and I primarily use Vallejo paint. Um, I used to use Game Color, but it's more glossy and it's more available in model color now. The availability is better in model color and the range is expanding. And I like their new formula. It's more matte, which is what I prefer. So I typically use that, but I do use the contrast paints for Games Workshop a lot. Haven't tried AK. Ooh, Breach and Brooks. Yeah. If you want to see a good painter, Breach and Brush is very, very good. Very, very good. I'll have to try. Um, like I said, I paint Xenos armies, so I'm open for suggestions on some of that stuff. My Vallejo paint is starting to get old, so I'm open to trying something well, I appreciate you spending the time to score them. So let's see. Is how devastating wounds get allocated when. Sorry, my eyes are starting to get blurry. Contacts all day. Is how devastating wounds gets allocated when used by a unit with precision different now? No. So devastating wounds are allocated last. So you do all your fast rolls, then you got your devastating wounds going last. So and those are carryovers. Doo-doo-doo. And typically, most of the time, you're not fighting into things with multiple armor saves anyway. So we talk about fast rolling a lot because we do have a unit that does use that in the Crusader squad. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're attacking something that's the same armor save. So it's the same rules as we use right now. There's no difference. So if I could have one AOS army brought to 40k, what would it be and why? Is it the Sephiron? Love the lizard dinos so much. Okay, so for those that are in the Discord, know that I play the Drakari, much like Skari. Um, I he started playing Drakari before me, but I played like Templars before him. But anyway, um, I like elves, so I would have to go with the Sylvaneth and actually have a Sylvaneth army that I've painted. Maybe I'll put it on the channel someday. Um, Actually, I'm pretty proud of it. I'm no breach and brush, but I think I'm above average skill level. I don't do all those fancy techniques like OSL, but it's pretty good. I like the idea of the Sylvaneth. I think that's something that isn't covered by what 40K is currently doing. Um, the plant-based race. I think that would be something that would be kind of cool. How they would be applicable for like shooting, I think they would have to play into more of like the Kroot low technology style. But um, let's see here. Let's see. You can't pick or choose the devs or our precision. Normals aren't anymore. Yep, that's true. All right, we got 4 minutes, everyone. So what do you got for me? Here's your last 4 minutes. I'll probably take like two more questions. Thanks again for everyone for coming out. I know this is late for you guys. I appreciate you. It's been a fun time. I like talking to you guys. It involves the community, even if it's just like me. I know Valrac does these streams, but Valrac is so big. Like I can't even follow his live stream. It's just blasting so fast. Everyone talks so way too fast. I don't know how he does it. And it's like super chat, super chat, super chat. He's got that overlay where it talks over the thing. I don't know. I can't do it. It's distracting. I appreciate that, sir. I try to be. I'm not the. I won't lie. I'm pretty rusty. Haven't been to a super major, but I am going to one this summer. So those that are in the Midwest, you can come see me and join me at Northern Maelstrom in Minnesota, July 26th. That's super major. It's my first one in a long time, since I have had kids. You know, can't travel when you have young kids, but this one's local to me, so I'm going to be going to that. I'm going to try and get to 3 or 4 tournaments this year, so I can actually have an ITC placing this year and give David a little bit of a run for the money on the BT. Hopefully, I don't choke it up because most of my games are uh, GTs or RTTs. It hasn't. We haven't had anything local super major in a while. Bug Eater is one of my favorite tournaments, but now they don't do singles anymore. They do teams, and I don't have a team, and I can't practice with a team, so I don't have a team. So I did see Tactics say that there's going to be inventory based. I think the ones that are going to be most effective are probably going to be more inventory based, but I don't think that vehicles are going to be dead. I think they're still going to have the ability to be taken. Like we talked about earlier in the stream, I think 2 Rep X's are probably going to be the limit just because of how much terrain's on the board. Um, but it's going to be harder to hide them. And I think people are probably going to skew right away into uh, some additional shooting right off the bat, just kind of see where the plays out. And if there's not a lot of vehicles in the meta, then it's going to taper off. So I think initially it's going to be a little harder for vehicles to be successful. Um, Typically, what I've seen, at least the last few editions, people skew into more anti-infantry. I'm sorry, anti-vehicle, anti monstrous creatures right away, just in case. But I think eventually it's going to start going into the anti-infantry because you're going to want to be able to kill them as they move into the middle of the board because you are basically going to lose a turn of shooting right off the bat, potentially two because of hidden. So when you shoot, you're going to want to kill something. So they're going to skew into the infantry initially, especially if you're not a melee army. My daughter's going to be my future team. Okay, we'll be in the next couple of editions after that. They do have interest in starting to paint, but I don't trust them with my Space Marines. I'll give them something like Necrons to start, or my Tau. They like my Tau because they're blue and they have fuchsia pink, and they like that a lot. Let's see. I'm a little past, but I think there was another question there somewhere. Okay, maybe not. Okay. So yeah, I think that's it. So I appreciate all for jumping in, taking the time and spending the time. I know we've hovered around the 60 to 80 people in here, and it's pretty late. So thanks for hanging out. Hopefully this was informative. I know it's just one man on the internet spewing his opinion on it, but hopefully it was informative to you. Um, I'm not the end all be all of Black Templars, but I do try and give you informed um, information based on a long history of Black Templar play. Played in every edition. I've been playing since Black Templars came out, so way back in 2000. So I can show you all of them. So appreciate you doing that. If you've not joined our Discord, awesome Discord, very, very talkative. A lot of great people. It is calm, friendly, and very informative for everyone that's in it. So you can find that in the description. Please do all the algorithm thingies for us once this uploads. The thumbs up if you feel it was informative. Comment. That would be awesome to help get the algorithm to see us. These live streams don't perform as well as a regular video. So, other than that, we appreciate you and I bid you all a fantastic night. See you in the Discord.